Hello everyone, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to English lesson. With me, Bunda Army. Today we are going to learn about explanation text. Maybe some of you have known better about explanation text since in the last activity week we have identified and practiced more on reading and also pointing out several important informations inside of explanation text. In this session, what I'm going to tell you is more about the characteristics of explanation text in a more detailed way. So everyone, let's start the lesson. Well, maybe some of you are wondering, why do I need to know about explanation text? Is it important for me? Yes, this is very important because you will find a lot of explanations in your life, especially if you are a student. You will find lots of explanations in a book, in your academic book, or if you are finding an informations to ask or to know about why something happened and how something happened in the internet, and you are reading it in English, then knowing about explanation would help. Or maybe if you are going to take a TOEFL test or IELTS or other English test, mostly the reading, and especially if it is academic test, then you will find an explanation text. Or maybe later, if you are going to enter the college, you need to take a test first, which we call as UTBK. Then you will find an English test there, and mostly the tests are about reading, and the text for the reading itself mostly about explanations. So that will be very useful for you. And besides that, maybe later if you are going to college, you have lots of assignments and you need to read a journal article and it is in English, then knowing about explanations would be very helpful because you can understand easily about the explanations, right? That's why we need to learn about this. Then, what is an explanation text? As we know, an explanation text is a text written to explain about how and why something in the world happens, to show or explain about phenomenon. It mostly talking about social phenomenon, natural phenomenon, or maybe scientific phenomenon. For example, it is talking about how the reading system works, and then how digestive process works, or maybe why does the earth round, and lots of things. There are several types of explanation texts that you need to know. Firstly, there is an explanation text that explains an occurrence or how something works. For example, about how does the respiratory system work, how does the rain exist, and something like that. And secondly, there is an explanation text that explains why things happen. For example, like why does social dilemma happen, and why does the earth round, for example. And the other type is that an explanation text that explains the similarities and differences between objects. For example, if you are going to explain about augmented reality and virtual reality, you need to compare between one to another. Then you need to use an explanation text. Or lastly, you can also use an explanation text that explains about how to approach a problem that has to be resolved. For example, how to overcome anxiety, how to handle depressions, for example. It is something that you can use with explanation text. After you have known about the types of the explanation text, then it's going to be easier for you to read the text or to write the text. Besides that, you also need to know about the structures of the explanation text so that you can read step by step and get the information clearly. Or you can also write the explanation text clearly with the structures. As we know that there are four structures that we need to pay attention on in explanation text. The first one is title, second one is general statement, third one is series of sequence paragraph, and fourth is concluding paragraph. Firstly, let's talk about title. Title is basically the first thing that you will see in an explanation text. Title prepares and leads the reader to the text. So, at the first time you read the title, you will be able to guess what are the text about. Sometimes title can be in the form of questions. For example, like how something works, why something happens. You can use that. And then the second one is about general statement. Basically, it is a brief introduction that introduces or identifies the phenomenon. For example, you can give definitions in the general statement, or you can give small introductions inside the general statement. And then the third one is the series of sequence paragraph. It's merely explaining about why or how something happens, or maybe about the process. Yeah, so it should be from step by steps. It should be in a sequence. You cannot exchange the order. You have to put the most important paragraph first, and then the second paragraph is the less important. Okay, something like that. And then the last one is about concluding paragraphs. It is a statement that end the explanations. It shows that the explanations is finished, and it's just like that. Well, this is one of the example of an explanation text. It is talking about how does something happen. Here I have differentiate the color and also give you the structure analysis. So you can pause this and read the text, and you can identify the structure along with reading the text. Alright. Another important information that you need to know about explanation text is also about the language features. Language features is basically talking about the language that you need to pay attention to in an explanation text, because you will use that or you will see that often. The first one, in an explanation text, you will use lots of present tense and also action verbs. Present tense is used to indicate that the things that you explain, the phenomena that you explain, are still true until now. The facts are still exist until the present. That's why we use present tense. And why do we use action verbs? It is actually to indicate that we are explaining something, like the example that you can read by yourself. And then you also need to pay attention on the use of technical terms. Technical terms are the vocabulary that specifically used for specific subject. For example, there is a biological language or biological vocabularies or technological vocabularies, or for example sociological, or lots of things. For example, like here you can see intercostal, big data, internet of things, and those words are used specifically in their subject. Besides that, you also need to pay attention on the linking words, especially the linking words of the cause and effects, because when we are talking about why something happens, then there would be a cause and also effects of the phenomenon. For example, the linking words that you can use are because of, due to, since, because, yang semuanya itu adalah artinya karena, and then also the effects, for example, as a result, therefore, so, and etc. And also you need to pay attention on the use of passive voice, ya, kalimat pasif. So for the passive voice, I will discuss it separately. And then the last one, you can also need to pay attention to conjunctions, yeah, especially the conjunctions of time, because there are the sequence explanations. Then you need to show the time clearly. For example, when the breathing process happens, the brain sends blah blah blah. After, before, finally, meanwhile, or etc. Well, I think that's all for the explanation text. I hope that you can understand the explanation well. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.